inside our autistic minds. Like the documentary describes, it's a hidden crisis that the wider world doesn't know what it's like to be autistic. My name is Brenda and I'm a parent of a young person living with autism. And I wish to share my thoughts as a parent about how this documentary managed to successfully highlight the really important issues around ensuring that a person living with a condition such as autism is heard and represented within society. This documentary shared the lives of 4 young people, and there's Chris Packham, the presenter. I watched Chris growing up back in the 80s when he used to be on the Really Wild show, and I remember his great commentary around wildlife documentaries, etc. And recently he has shared that he is also autistic, and he is a great presenter. And in this documentary it's been really good to see how he relates and empathises with a lot of these young people as they share their experiences. And what really reflected throughout the programme was when he mentioned the saying, once you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. If you haven't seen the documentary, I've put the link in the description below. But if you have, I'm sure you will share with me the final delivery of their views and wishes about how they feel about their experiences living with autism, presented in the form of a film for everyone to see. Really, it was a masterpiece. So the first of the young people is Flo. Flo is 28 and lives with her partner. Flo does comedy and has had a recent diagnosis of autism. Flo spoke about her experiences of burnout within her relationships with colleagues and friendships, and now has connected the dots as she reflects on how she grew up. What I liked about what Flo shared and what was discovered, it highlighted the impact of masking and how some people would describe autism as a hidden disability, whereas you can see a young person and you would think that you would have no idea what their challenges are or what their abilities are because you would perceive them as normal. The documentary brings light on issues that can create cliches such as this person doesn't necessarily look autistic, or it's unlikely for girls to be autistic. And also what I liked is it was able to bring a mother and daughter together and reflect on the past in a loving way that wasn't about judgment or blame, but more about looking at what actually is and what there is to work on, so they're able to live authentic lives. Second person in the documentary is Murray. Murray is 20 and is described as non-verbal. Murray uses a computer to communicate with others around him, and he had a deep desire to be heard amongst others. What was highlighted really well was how when feedback is taken from the parents, so with Murray, his mum and his dad were able to provide insight into what it takes to be able to allow Murray to share exactly how he feels and what he wants to say. Really allowed the creative team to come together to produce this wonderful piece of work that really represented what Murray felt within his own words. What I really liked was when Murray was asked to choose who he would like to have as a voiceover for his own voice. And this could be so overlooked, but in terms of watching that whole process, created such a beautiful outcome for everyone. Back to that quote that Chris used about if you know one autistic person, you only know one autistic person. It just really gave a good representation of a young person with autism and young people that are living with learning disabilities, and how each individual person communicates differently in their own way. And it allowed me to think of those times where you can get caught up in comparisons, whether that's from other professionals or family members or even yourself, where you may see one person doing it one particular way, and because they have a diagnosis of autism, there's an expectation that perhaps they should as well. It really did highlight how each individual is unique. And the third young person is Anton. Anton enjoys trance music and he also lives with his fiancée. Anton shared his challenges around managing his routine and also managing his time, and how it has an impact on his day-to-day living. And what the documentary highlighted in terms of what Anton shared is that he would find himself hiding these particular traits about him, and he would use words such as trying to be something that he's not. And it was interesting to hear what his friends thought of him once they were aware that he had autistic traits. And I recall one of his friends talking about how he had an autistic brother, and even with that experience did not recognise that Anton was also living with autism. What was really interesting when having a discussion with Anton's mum was how Anton's behaviour resulted in an early diagnosis, which wasn't the case for Flo. However, they both were masking their autistic traits. What also resonated with me was when Anton's mum spoke about those supermarket moments, which I'm sure many of you have your own stories, which I know I have. And then the last young person was Ethan. Ethan is 19. Ethan spoke about his issues of social isolation and what that looks like when he goes to college. The documentary spoke with some researchers in the field, and they spoke about the challenges that some autistic people have around their sensory issues, whether that's taste, smell, touch. And the descriptions that they used were really insightful. I've got to say kudos to the college, because that was another example where it does require a lot of patience to get to understand a young person before passing judgment on who they are and why they do what they do. And what was really interesting was in the final creative piece that was put together for Ethan, his friends at college, once they were aware of how he experiences his own world, it was so interesting to hear their perspective. And the takeaway I got from the feedback provided from his friends and family was that even if Ethan had said, they wouldn't have really understood it in the way that the creative piece had represented what his lived experience looked like. I mean, this documentary really was, in my opinion, was extremely superb. I'd give it a 10 out of 10. I mean, it really was a good insight into the minds of an autistic person. I'd love to know what your thoughts were about the documentary, so why not share in the comment? But for now, thank you.